Hey, this is Kahja Elliott, Bronx born and raised, ATL made, Bay Area becoming, and this is the As Told By podcast. All right, once again, it's on. We back for this week's episode of the As Told By podcast. So, y'all know how I feel about food and all things culinary. And this week, I'm a fan of people, whether I know them or not, but I watch their work and I'm inspired by their work. And then sometimes I reach out to them and like, hey, do you want to come up to the podcast? So today I have Star Chef's Rising Stars Game Changer, contributing writer for Resy, owner and founder of the highly anticipated Burdell restaurant, Chef Geoff Davis. If you're not familiar with him, you will be.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Thanks for coming up.
Yeah.
How are you?
Excellent.
Good. I'm a fan.
Thank you.
Of what you do.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. Yes. I've been to one of the pop-ups. We'll talk about that more.
Awesome.
Yes. But Burdell, I'm hearing a lot of anticipation and buzz about what is to come with your opening later this year.
Yeah. We've been really fortunate to have a lot of people really feel connected to the story that we're trying to tell and with the food. So it's been a lot of fun to see just a different aspect of food being represented in a serious way that's getting some traction. So it's exciting.
And it's an exciting time. We need more of this coming to Oakland. So, I mentioned in the intro that you and I don't know each other. This is our first time meeting.
Yeah, like 3 minutes ago.
Yeah. So I did a little bit of research, but, I want to get information with the rest of the listenership. So tell us a bit about who you are. I know that I read that your family's history is a primary inspiration for the restaurant. And I know that Burdell is actually the name of your maternal grandmother.
Yeah. So, I guess kind of like the story of the restaurant and why it's called that is about honoring those traditions and remembering grandmothers and those that you share meals with at your youngest age. So I think that just really captured my imagination, just using my grandmother's name and then just tapping into those memories of sitting at the table on holidays and stuff like that. So I just really want to have that kind of feel. But my grandmother was in New Jersey. That's where my mom was born. My dad's side of the family kind of was in the Philadelphia area.
Okay.
So I was born just outside of Philadelphia. And so I have a lot of memories of before we moved to California, but moved to California when I was pretty young. But as I got older, both sets of my grandparents moved out to California, just trying to get away from the bad weather and those kind of things. But, they brought, as a pretty much around the time I was third, fourth grade. So grew up and came of age with them around both sets. So it was pretty cool to be able to share, all those really celebratory, nostalgic meals with them. And it really shaped, how I viewed food, especially my grandmother Burdell, my mom's side, and then my grandfather Warren, also on my mom's side. He owned a farm in New Jersey. And so, I just remember as a child, just his excitement over cantaloupe as it came into season and corn and as we got into fall, even just cabbages, he was just really excited and as a young boy, learning how to pick them in the grocery store and stuff like that. Just really, so I was always really fascinated with that kind of stuff. And just try to do some other things. But just kept coming back to food. And,
That's great. I mean, I'm going to get into this more about this renewed interest in Black farming. But, what you described is the story of a lot of Black people, right? But, everyone doesn't parlay that into a career as a chef. So when did you come to know that this was the path you wanted to take, or did that gradually become clear over time?
I think it became clear over time. I mean, my parents had an interest in restaurants and stuff, and So I remember going to restaurants kind of quite a bit as a kid, and like, you know, my mom would just like try to engage with me of like what I liked about the restaurant, what I didn't like, or push me to try new things.
Mm-hmm.
And
I love that.
And then as I got older, we would pick a cookbook for the summer and cook, you know, recipes out of the cookbook like 2 or 3 times a week during the summer. And I would like have a budget and be in charge of like shopping and buying the stuff to make the recipe and stuff. And so, you know, it was just like really got into that stuff. And, you know, both my parents are academics, and we're like, you know, this is going to be a fun hobby for him. And, you know, then he's going to go on to do something else. But I just kept coming back to cooking. So,
yeah.
I decided to drop out of school, you know, to become an English major and go to culinary school. I went to the Culinary Institute of America in Hyde Park.
Okay. Hyde Park, New York.
New York, yeah.
Okay.
And decided to come back to California because that weather thing.
That weather is a trap.
It's
gets the East Coast people out here on the West Side.
Totally. So yeah, and you know, living in New York as you know, a 21-year-old is pretty difficult. I could see myself doing it now, but you know, yeah, I was just ready to come back to California, so I found myself back in California and in the Bay Area. So yeah.
All right. I love that story that you just told about kind of being introduced to restaurants and culinary experiences earlier, and being encouraged to order things or try things outside of the norm. Please, when you take your children to eat, they don't always have to have chicken fingers. Please push them to get other things.
Yeah, totally. I mean, they should be able to you know, I think it's just like I think like a lot of parents, I'm not a parent, so I can't really like, you know, have a huge opinion on this, but I really think that it's your kids being picky is a creation and not necessarily the norm. So like,
I know that's right. Thank you.
So like your kids being picky is probably because you're picky or you think that they should be picky. So
right. My philosophy was always picky kids are hungry kids.
Totally.
Unless you're allergic, try it.
Totally. Like you know, like cultures that around the world that, you know, they eat smoked fish or something, like the kids are eating that, you know, it's not like there's pizza on a kid's
no
menu.
Ranch.
Yeah, so
yeah. I love it. So Burdell, from what I've read and from what I have heard, you know, it's more than just farm to table dining, because it really seems to be connected to the origins of Black people in this country, and, you know, our unique place in creating the culture of American food by bringing these innate processes around farming and fishing and the likes to this country, and the ingenuity of creating with what you have. So as you build on the legacy of that in your career, what parts of that do you want to make progressive, and what parts of that do you want to keep untouched?
Wow, that's a really good question. It's I think it's really important for me that to honor the traditions, but do it in a modern way. That it's a modern restaurant, and modern in the sense that we really are concerned with like the sourcing of our stuff, and using the best quality ingredients that we can get our hands on, using them creatively and trying not to waste. And I think that really harkens back to the ways that my grandparents and great grandparents lived and survived, like learning how to turn the trim from you know, your green tomato slices for fried green tomatoes, you know, learning how to turn that, pickle those and use those for something, so you're not throwing anything away. My grandfather would always say something that his mother told him, you know, had passed by time I was aware, but you know, eat what you can and can what you can't. And
wait a minute, that's a bar. Eat what you can what you can't. Canning is a lost art.
Totally.
Yeah.
So, you know, definitely we'll be really cognizant of like preserving things and trying to come up with creative uses for trims and ends of things, and you know, whether, you know, we're making vinegars with them or pickling them or turning them into just other uses. So
Yeah.
but I think black farming is a lost thing, because I think at the end of slavery, and then the end of slavery again after sharecropping kind of faded away. I don't think black people want to get away from the South, and were moved into areas where farming wasn't even a possibility, or sometimes and still to this day, like eating vegetables isn't as much of a possibility. And so I just want to kind of like harken back to the fact that black food is not in its core unhealthy or not full of vegetables or things that are good for you, because at its core, that's really what it is.
That's what it was.
And so it's just been, all the metro areas of the north that everyone migrated to, it was just like so hard to access healthy food. And it's just been kind of like beaten into our being and like our existence as like our diets and our habits and stuff. And I think it's really important to show that like there's so much range, there's so many different dishes that are vegetable based and healthy and good for you and nourishing. Like so.
Absolutely. Everything doesn't have to be
deep fried,
laid to the
smothered.
side,
Yeah.
right? There's nothing wrong with that, but just, moderation is key.
Totally.
To that point, I got to attend one of your pop-ups a couple of months ago, and I really enjoyed myself. When I go to these things, I don't mind going with people, but usually when I have my best experiences is when I just pull up solo and, I can really have an experience. And one of the first things I noticed is it was like chef's tables style dining. So we had visibility. We were sitting around the bar area, or the kitchen area, I should say. So we have full visibility to the inner workings of the kitchen. And I was so impressed by the fact that not only was there a dinner service happening, but it almost seemed like there was a class happening at the same time. You had, your team there working with you, but I could see you giving them direction and course correcting as things went along. So I felt like I got a dinner and a show. Yeah. I was entertained and well fed.
Awesome.
Yes. Well, what's been the importance for you of bringing along chefs who are earlier in their journey in the process?
I mean, I think it's really important. I mean, I had that, had mentors along the way, and I think it's really hard to teach people, and but it's so important that we continue passing down of knowledge and passing down of our attempt at excellence and our drive to really refine the craft. And that's what's really important to me. My background is in, Michelin starred restaurants and fine dining. And I think that those systems really exclude Black people in a lot of ways. And so, part of the reason for Burdell is, to make space for people of color to feel comfortable in the kitchen and still learn excellence and technique.
Yeah. So. You bring up an interesting point because I feel like we see this advent right now of cooks, many of whom are successful, who have not gone through the traditional route of culinary school, and certainly not those who have, cut their teeth in Michelin star restaurants. Do you think it's possible to have a certain level of success in the industry if you are self-taught versus formally taught, or do you think there will always be a distinction?
I mean, success is relative, right? So yeah. I think you can make money, you can have a successful business, but I think with the aspirations of those kind of restaurants that I came up in, I think that you need to have experience working in those kind of restaurants, and have a good foundation of skills and a good technique and a full understanding of the basics before you start creating. Yeah. Just like, I think, a great musician, you need to learn how to play the classics before you start writing your own songs.
Got it.
So I think that's really important.
Okay.
Yeah.
Talking to people like me who do not have, as much as I love to cook, I'm just always so reminded of all the skills I don't have. Last summer, I decided to try and teach myself to grill. I was watching a big PBS nerd, so I was watching a lot of Stephen Reichland to try to get techniques about smoking and creating indirect heating zones and all the things. But, there's professional and then there's the house.
I mean, everybody cooks, so it's like, I think it's like a thing that like people identify with cooking, but like, cooking professionally and cooking in a restaurant is like a totally different thing. I mean, there's innate pressure, but there's also, pressure that we put on ourselves that we're, people are spending their hard-earned money and you really want to deliver the experience, and a million things go wrong and you need to be able to adapt and have that backbone of like technique to be able to like really deliver something that's consistent and delicious. And so
you can't fake it at the Michelin star restaurant. You have to be trained. Well, I loved my experience at the pop-up. I always love when I come to a dining experience and I have to pull out my phone and start looking up what things are, which I had to do. Awesome. At your pop-up. So, food and learning and the show. But one of the things I noticed is that your menus didn't include like a lot of extras. When you see people put a lot of cheese or a lot of sauce all over food to maybe kind of try to beef up a dish that can't necessarily stand on its own. Talk a bit about your approach to creating dishes that are really a vehicle for the actual food.
So I spend the majority of the time sourcing. And so for each dinner, I typically go to 3 markets around the Bay Area. We actually have a pop-up coming up this Sunday at Mago again. And so, tomorrow morning, kind of the market runs continue. So I'm going to Marin tomorrow morning to go pick up some stuff for the pop-up. And then I'm going to Friday market and then Saturday. And then I'll probably potentially have to go to West Oakland on Sunday.
Okay.
So there's a lot of sourcing that goes into it. And I have relationships with a lot of these farms, and the stuff is just, it's worth the amount of running around and driving for. And it's really important for me to like let the stuff just kind of speak for itself because it's so delicious. Like the broccoli that we get is just like so sweet. I think you had, it's just like so sweet. It doesn't taste like starchy or bitter. Yeah. So we just don't need to do stuff to cover that up. We really want to let those things shine. We get, cornmeal specifically milled for us. So like, I don't want to try to do something that really covers up the flavor of that. We want to let it really shine. And, with the restaurant kind of having this nostalgic feel, like we're trying to like limiting garnishes and stuff and just want it to feel like home cooking and just really be really pure and not fussy. Yeah.
I'm here for it. This is the boom bap of food. We are not going to heavily produce. This is not the shiny suit food. This is the food. I like it. I also noticed a theme of kind of the familiar alongside maybe the less familiar. So I remember specifically the beef tartare that had the broccoli puree with the white cheddar. So it's like broccoli and cheddar. That's familiar. Yeah. But I hadn't had beef tartare before. That was a first for me. And, same thing with like the chicken liver mousse and waffles. That could very easily have just been chicken and waffles, right? But just like stepping it up, asking the diner to kind of step up to a little bit of an elevated experience. And although I didn't have this, I saw that you have a recipe posted for a smothered rabbit. So same thing. That could have easily been smothered chicken or smothered pork chop, but, throwing the rabbit in there as the protein makes it something a little bit different. So when you create menus, are you intentionally looking to stretch the diner's palate?
No, I think just doing things in the context of like the chicken and waffles dish was like a fun, play. Like I think a lot of like tasting menus would start with like some sort of chicken liver mousse, and it's like, what's the way that we can kind of tie it in with with the concept. And so, you know, chicken and waffles is just like a kind of a funny, punny way to like include that. But you know, these are all things that I love to eat and just like present it in a way that's like nostalgic to me as well. So, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're a fan of nostalgia.
Yeah.
I found in my research, I really enjoyed the hominess of the variety of things that food was being served on. So I understand you're a collector of vintage Pyrex.
Yeah. I'm actually like, there's someone that I buy some stuff from that I met on Instagram, but now she like tries to find some stuff for me in Indiana. And so she ships stuff to me, and it's been really fascinating. I know way too much about the patterns and stuff. Like a lot of the patterns, they only ran for like 3 or 4 years. So it's like a window in a certain time period. So a lot of the like patterns that like my grandparents had or my mom grew up on, it just like, it's pretty cool to like tap into a certain time period through those Pyrex plates, and everyone has a connection to those. Not everyone, but like most people have connections to those. And so it's like pretty cool to like see that stuff come back around and just really, you know, just tie in with the time period that we're trying to kind of capture. So.
Yeah, because it reminded me of what you would find at somebody's multi-course meal in their southern home, right? And we've all had, my family's from South Carolina. I certainly have had that experience. I think we had the white with those little blue, it looks like daisy flowers on the Pyrex.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's like a
good memories.
That's a early 70s pattern, you know, so.
That sounds about right.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's really cool, you know, just being able to kind of like reconnect with those things, and we're trying to do the same thing with like our silverware for the restaurant. So that's what I've been working on pretty heavily like this week. So
okay,
yeah.
What do you want diners to walk away knowing after a meal at Burdell?
That like this food matters a lot. That soul food matters a lot. And you know, Burdell is squarely a soul food restaurant, and squarely like a black food restaurant, but it's not a Southern restaurant. Obviously, like a lot of the stuff traces its roots back to the South, but you know, I really want to try to tell the story of like black migration to cities and how we adapt it once we got to those cities, and then you know try to reconnect to the land a bit. So
I like that. Very interesting. You know, there's a lot of conversation happening right now about the history of Black food. You know, shout out to KJ Kearney of Black Food Fridays, as well as the future of culinary artistry at the hands of, you know, these really highly trained Black chefs. I'm a huge fan of Ghetto Gastro. Shout out to them because they're from the Bronx. We're from the same block. I love them. And big fan of Carlton McCoy, who I got to meet very quickly at an event that was at Holder's house this past summer. And I was like trying not to fan. I was just like, I'm a really big fan of your show. Yeah. Great. Just trying to, don't freak them out. But I find myself learning so much from all of them. Who are you most inspired by on the culinary scene right now?
I mean, I did an event up in Napa in November, and I met BJ Dennis, and I was like, you know, fanning myself. So
that's
that was
a fan out moment.
So we got to spend some time talking, and I was presenting some food and some dishes and stuff. He got to like try the food and like got to chop it up a bit and exchange contact information. So hopefully I'm gonna like go down there and do a dinner at some point. That's what we kind of had talked about. So. He's really inspiring because he just really like it's connecting us to the land again, and to grain farming and fishing and just all these things that are like really cool. He's just doing it in this really authentic way. That gets me pretty fired up. So
I love him. My dad's side of the family is in Colleton County, Yemassee specifically, and he is just representing so well for Gullah Geechee Low Country cuisine and culture. So if you don't know BJ Dennis, you should look him up.
Yeah, he's a goat.
Yeah. Good stuff. Good stuff. I also found, in my research that you are, and I mentioned in your intro, a contributing writer for Resi. And, I read through some of the articles, which were really good. I loved the one about Lois the Pie Queen specifically. Yeah. I got to go in there maybe about a year and a half ago and have a meal. And I wasn't there that long, but I was like, this is a place I would love to come back and really absorb some of the history. You can just tell from all the photos that this is a place that's really entrenched in the history of Oakland. So loved your take on your experience there. Was being a writer, because the articles are really good, was being a writer a close second for you as a career choice?
Yeah. I think I initially went to school to pursue English degree, and just kept coming back to cooking, and just needed to work with my hands. So, yeah. But having an outlet to write about food, especially as a kind of like the pandemic kept going, was a lot of fun. And shout out to Paulo Lucchesi, who used to be the editor for the Chronicle Food section. Mm-hmm. He now works at Resi and curates those pieces that are written by a bunch of cool people, like a bunch of chefs and a bunch of people that are have a really cool perspective. And they started doing a classic feature. So they started instead of focusing on the latest, hottest opening, like focusing on these restaurants that have been there for multiple years or multiple decades, and really like shining the light back on them. And that I get excited about old restaurants a lot. So, I was just really excited to write about a couple old places that I really like and really tell their story. Lotus Pie Queen is just like it's a absolute institution. And if you're in Oakland and you haven't been there, you're not doing it fully. So
you're not.
Yeah.
Go get your apple pie.
Yeah.
Go get your salmon croquettes. All the things. I always love to hear where chefs are eating, right? Locally and beyond. So are there a few places that are standouts for you besides Lois in Oakland where you find yourself eating a lot? But also, what are some of your favorite cities for food jaunts?
Man, so I'd say like in Oakland, I have a few, like we kind of have like a routine of places that we go to. Mm-hmm. I don't go to Lois as much as I would like, because I'm not really a breakfast eater that often, but occasionally it's nice to go check in with them. But I really like Belotti. I think that's like one of the better Italian restaurants in the Bay Area. I lived in Italy for 7 months, so it's really like kind of nostalgic to that time.
Nice. What part?
In the north in Piemonte, in Torino.
Okay.
So it's really like nostalgic because he's from that region. Mm-hmm. So it's really like the restaurant, like good and bad, is like really good representation of it. Like service is a little gruff, and like the tables are too close together, and like the food's plated a little like 90s, but it's like so delicious. And
what is 90s food plating?
I don't know. You just like have the random arugula that's like not dressed. So
it's tossed on there.
But it's really delicious, and I really like that place. I really like Comey and CDP. I worked for James for a while, so he's a big mentor of mine, and it's like always just like an amazing experience to go check in there. I really like Great China in Berkeley. Another really good friend of mine, family-run Chinese place that has an insane wine list.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, Tacos Automobile.
That is okay, y'all. Remember, I posted about that not long ago. That is the place for tacos. That's the place for pozole. That's the place for the craziest sauce and condiment bar I've seen so far. That is the place.
Yeah, it's really good. And then I don't know. There's so many places in Oakland. Like Oakland is just so has such a great range of places. I mean, obviously, I named some places kind of like across the range of price points.
Yeah.
But they're all great in their own way, and they like are perfect for different occasions.
Mm-hmm.
And there's like tons of little spots in our neighborhood that I'm not going to blow up here, but
Keep people out the mix.
Yeah, but yeah.
Yeah. And then what about when you travel domestically? What are some of your favorite food cities?
I was just in New Orleans earlier this month,
Mm-hmm.
and that's one of the best eating cities
Mm-hmm.
in the world. So that was a lot of fun. There's nothing like going to New York. I mean, it's pretty endless amount of food going on.
I'm really loving Chicago for food.
I haven't been in too long. So,
Okay.
that's definitely like on my list.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Phoenix is really underrated. Like there's great food like at different price points. There's a lot of great like soul food places.
Soul food places in Phoenix.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a good place to check out. And then a couple of years ago I went to Nashville and Memphis
Mm-hmm.
on the same trip, and that was pretty amazing.
Wow.
too.
Yeah. And I mean, there's sweet tea, so
Yeah.
that means will there be sweet tea at Burdell?
It's possible.
Okay.
Yeah.
I asked. So if you see it, thank me. Thank us both. Thank me and thank him. This probably will sound like a shady question. I swear it's not. But, in a world of hookah and Alfredo sauce and grass walls and neon signs, what do you want people to know about who you are in this industry?
That I'm none of those things.
Release the chokehold of Alfredo sauce, please.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're trying to tell the story of nostalgia. And so, I definitely don't want to ride any trends.
Mm-hmm.
We signed a 15-year lease. So
Come on, commitment.
we're going to be on there we're going to be, in the neighborhood for a while. And, I don't want to be concerned with like what's kind of like popular right now, and really just be focused on just like connecting with like our shared memories and nostalgia of like our grandmothers and the food that connects families together. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm really coming to understand, not just coming to understand, but really appreciate the role of grandmothers in people's lives as I talk to people in, a culinary and all other kinds of entrepreneurs and musicians, et cetera. But one of the things that has been a common thread is the impact people's grandmothers have had on their lives. So shout out to the grandmothers.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I know you mentioned the pop-up. By the time this episode airs, the pop-up will have already happened. But just to get people warmed up for what they can expect, what can they expect at this pop-up?
Or what they already had.
What they already had, but what you can maybe expect from Burdell.
I don't reveal menus.
Okay.
Just kind of intentionally, and just if people post about it on their own thing, that's fine. But I never repeated a dish with the pop-up, and kind of in the same way at the restaurant, really want to be focused on like what's in season that week, and then use it to make dishes. And so there won't be, there will be some staples that are on there that are less produce driven, like the breads that we make and stuff like that. But
Okay.
it's really, the menu is going to change a lot, and it's going to be just using the same tenets of cooking that, the basis of like building flavors kind of in the southernish way, but the ingredients and the proteins and stuff will change a lot. So sometimes multiple times a week. So,
sounds good. Yeah. All right. So tell people when they can expect to pull up and have a meal at Burdell.
So we're going to keep doing pop-ups, a lot less frequently, as we kind of, are going into the building phase of the restaurant. But we're hoping for a late spring opening. But just waiting on the couple last puzzle pieces for our, we're getting a loan. So we're getting the last little puzzle pieces of that.
Okay.
And then, we'll start, kind of our light kind of makeover of the space, and then we'll go into it. So
ready to go. Well, I can't wait. I'm looking forward to it, as I know many other people are. I hope to see the Oakland community really come out and support. Let people know where they can find more information about you, your writing, and about Burdell online.
So Instagram's the best way to find stuff about Burdell. That is at Burdell_OAK for Oakland. So that's a good place. And then our website is BurdellOakland.com. That's another, keep that up to date with like events that are coming up, and we'll keep that up to date with like restaurant information. And then I've written a couple pieces for Resi, or I guess more like a few now. And you can find that on Resi's site. They have like a blog section, and you can just, there's a lot of great pieces, but my pieces are on there as well.
Okay. Well, I'll make sure that I post the link to all of those things with the episode. In the interim, if you want to stop by my page and get to know me a little bit better, you can find me at Kahja versus Kahja. That's KAHJA_VS_KAHJA. Thank you so much for coming.
Yeah.
I really appreciate it. Looking forward to your big opening later this year.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right. That's this week's episode of the As Told By podcast. Peace.